watching the latest episode of Once Upon a Time. It's getting so good. And in next week's episode, it's going to be a special segment of my favorite villain, Ursula, the Sea Witch of the Sea. She's going to have her own little mix on her side of the story of why she came into Storybrooke. Let's talk all that and more on Vega411 because it's what's going on. Let's go. Hey guys, this is a brand new episode of Vega411. I'm so excited because I want to talk about the latest season of Once Upon a Time, Season 4. Have you guys been watching the latest episode? So far, we're having a blast with all these villainous villains, which is Cruella de Vil, Maleficent, and Ursula, which right now we're in the second half of Season 4 of Once Upon a Time. And each and every one of the villains has a specific story that they have on why they decided to come into Storybrooke to get their revenge, because now we're mostly dealing with, as you've been seeing in the current episodes, of all these villains, as we all know in our fairy tales of Disney, that they never have a happy ending. So I think now they want to change the story, and the hands of time on certain villains can have a happy ending. So each and every one of these villains has a specific storyline that they want to tell in this current season of Once Upon a Time. So in this episode, I want to talk a little bit about one of my favorite villains. But before I get into that, I want to talk about each and every villain before I even get into Ursula, which this episode is about a specific episode that she's going to have on why she came into Storybrooke and her background of her as a villain. If you already know, Maleficent was already a current villain in Season 1 of Once Upon a Time, where she was mostly locked up because of Regina, the evil queen of Snow White. She locked her up in the dungeon for so many years until the curse has ended. And then Emma Swan had also battled with her to fight off an egg that she had in the dungeon. And also, you know, like all the storylines of like Sleeping Beauty, where she also had her revenge on having her into a sleeping curse. But like I said again, each and Disney's version of Sleeping Beauty is going to be so totally different from Once Upon a Time, because they don't want to have the same type of storyline that we already saw in the movie Maleficent, that was on a worldwide box office successful release, that Angelina Jolie has played and did a remarkable job as Maleficent. Like, I give her so many props, like a standing ovation. She did amazing as Maleficent. But in this current season, it's gonna be mostly totally different. It's gonna be on her side of the story, and a little bit of a twist of the Disney side of the version, and also Sleeping Beauty. So what I do know for a fact is that Maleficent is coming back as a Storybrooke because she is mostly getting her revenge on Regina for locking her up for all those years due to the amount of the curse, and also it's taking advantage of her because she wanted that sleeping curse that she used against Snow White, which that was also against on Sleeping Beauty. And also she's also trying to get her revenge on Emma Swan for also battling with her and keeping her also in the dungeon by taking one of her prized possessions of the egg. So there's a lot of things that's going on with Maleficent on her side. Then we also have Cruella de Vil, who's also making a stop in Storybrooke. There's also been a lot of these complaints about why is Cruella in Once Upon a Time. She's not a villain that has magical powers, but then again, Once Upon a Time's version is going to be totally different than the 101 Dalmatians. And I believe that Cruella de Vil is one of the most eccentric villainous in the Disney franchise. I mean, yes, she is this big all-time glamorous diva who loves puppies, and she kills them to make them for fur. But I think she has a special motive as into why she's into Storybrooke. Besides that, she also wants to have a happy ending. But I think out of all three of the villains, she's going to be the one coming out on top by really controlling a lot that's going to happen in Storybrooke, and also have her own certain and side agenda than what Maleficent's motive is, as well as Ursula's motive, because both Ursula and Maleficent have a specific motive of why they came into Storybrooke, aside from they're trying to get their happy endings. So I'm really excited to see what Cruella de Vil's agenda is going to be as we go into like the episodes continue until we get into the season finale of Once Upon a Time. And then going into Ursula, I have been waiting for this for a long time because as we've seen so many villains come and go, and each episode of Once Upon a Time, they all have this big impact on Disney, that a lot of people that we have grown up as a child to see these villains to come into life on a live action drama series as Once Upon a Time, and to have Ursula the Sea Witch was a big impact, and she's also part of not only the Disney, but also I think what Once Upon a Time is mostly trying to get people to realize is they're not mostly trying to focus on the Disney side of the fairy tale. I think with Ursula, because a lot of people complain about why is the cast of Ursula black? Why is Ursula green if she was purple? And then why is Ursula skinny for that matter? Well, if you also realize Disney's side of the version of why they had the Sea Witch, she was in the Hans Christian and Andersen side of the story. The Sea Witch was mostly a nebulator. I don't know how to say it, if that's a nebulator, but she was not an antagonist of the whole side of the story of the Hans Christian Andersen side of the story until Disney became hands-on with it, and they decided to put the Sea Witch as an antagonist to the protagonist of the lead of the Little Mermaid. So they made her into this big all-time character and made her boisterous and theatrical because of Disney, because they didn't want her to be monstrous and scary for children of anywhere between ages of 5 and 12 to be scared of that type of villain. They wanted it to be a little bit more theatrical and more magical. But in the reality of it all, Ursula in Greek mythology, if you really get into the Greek mythology, she was a Cecilia, which is half human, half animal. And if you get into the Greek myth, there is a half human, half octopus that used to make a lot of tidal waves and a lot of thunderstorms and vortex, that anybody who passed by her side of the sea would mostly sink them in the bottom of the ocean because she used to eat them alive. But she was not only an octopus, but she was half octopus and half three-headed dog. But if you get into the Greek mythology, you get into understand of why Ursula is a big important part of the Little Mermaid. And I think she's going to have her separate side of the story, aside from her as the Sea Witch. But if you really get into it, Ursula used to take control of the kingdom. So she is a part of, we're also going to see, because I've heard in some of the articles that King Triton is also going to make his impact. But I think it's mostly Poseidon, because Poseidon is, out of all the Greek gods, is the ruler of the sea. Then he had a son, which was King Triton, and then a daughter, which was Ursula. So basically, Ursula and King Triton are siblings, and then that makes Ariel her stepmother. But there's a lot of things that's going on with this version on Once Upon a Time on why Ursula's gonna have her revenge, aside from Ariel. Her revenge, but I think mostly she's trying to get her revenge on Regina for impersonating her on season 3 of Once Upon a Time. And as we get along until the series continues, for next week's episode of Once Upon a Time, it's gonna on March 22nd. It's gonna be titled "Poor Unfortunate Soul." So I'm excited. So make sure you guys check it out on next week's episode of Once Upon a Time, because Ursula is gonna have her side of the story on why she's into Storybrooke and what's her history, along with her being in the sea and her taking control of the 7 seas of the ocean, and her relationship to Ariel and relationship to King Triton. So make sure you mark that in your calendars and watch that, because it's going to be very interesting, very good. Once Upon a Time, March 22nd at 8 p.m. on ABC. And you can also Hulu it if you haven't really checked out the episode. So make sure you watch it. And also, before I go, if you have not checked it out, please also check out my rendition of Poor Unfortunate Souls from The Little Mermaid on my YouTube channel. You can search it up on Jesse Rodriguez Vega. And also, I'll also post it on my Facebook page. And make sure you like facebook.com/jvega90 and as well facebook.com/vega411 and subscribe to my new YouTube channel. Thank you everybody for this special episode, and make sure you watch Once Upon a Time and subscribe to Vega411, like all my pages, and it's what's going on, and I'll see you guys soon. Thank you very much.